This is a Team Objection podcast for January 28th, 2021, episode 469. The sex number.
You guys,
Hey,
I got my vaccine today.
Yes.
Shot number 1.
Does your arm hurt?
This will be great. This will be like a diary.
All right. You can
Generations in the future.
You can chronicle your trip through vaccine land.
Yeah, so far I've been fine. It's almost weird. I'm kind of like those people a little bit where it's like nothing happened, so they even wonder like, did the thing do anything? Except I know that it is, but yeah, so far so good. Did
you have any headache or arm pain?
Not yet. Now supposedly the arm pain is going to come tomorrow, but no fever, no body aches. Barely even felt the thing. For some reason, I thought it was supposed to hurt going in, so I was ready. I didn't even know they did it, and then it was done.
That's
so
funny,
yeah,
that's you're the second person I've known that's got it. My mom got hers on Saturday, and she said the same thing where she didn't feel it going in whatsoever. She was like, "Oh, well, you're done? Oh, wow." But she had her arm hurt a lot on Sunday. And then had a huge headache all day Sunday. So we'll see.
Maisie also had a headache.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Not uncommon. And supposedly the symptoms are a little bit worse with the second one, but still really not that bad outside of a 24, maybe 36-hour period. My mom also has the first shot because she's a school nurse. So obviously she was very early in 1A. And pretty much same thing. Arm hurt for a day. Now, she's due to get her second shot now, I think next week. It's coming up. So we'll see how that one goes. But, at this point, we have a lot of the people that were in phase 1 in Arizona, whatever the phases are by state, some are different, but that have gotten their second ones, and most of them are also being like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, I know this came out quickly, so there's a temptation to think that it might be rushed or botched science or something, but it turns out, no, the ones that had good testing results, those tests apply just the same to the bigger population as they did those smaller control groups.
Yep. There's been no outbreak of sickness or DNA being changed or something like that.
That would be cool. Oh my god.
Well, I mean, it could go one of two ways. If you want to create mutants like X-Men, where certain people have special powers, could be beneficial. If you have I Am Legend, where you try to cure cancer, and then all of a sudden the city of New York is overrun by weird pink zombies, not so good.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? I would risk it. That'd be worth it. Because what's the worst that happens? I become a zombie. I don't think I'm aware anymore. Although, if you are, there's a case to be made for people like if they are actually kind of aware of what's going on. That would be terrible.
I mean, the problem is that you're thinking of it only in your own terms. You're damning the entire human society, and you're like, whatever, I'd try it.
I mean, of course. Would you say anything different? If I had a chance to be like Magneto. On the pro side, and then the con side is I wipe out all of humanity.
Yeah, but what if it's the middle ground? What if you end up being like Jubilee? So you're an X-Man, sure. You're on the team. You have a power. It's shooting sparkly shit out of your hands.
I would take it.
What if you turn into like Juggernaut or Beast or something like that? And you're just or that's your best case scenario is you turn into Beast.
That would I'd probably be okay with that.
I think like you go into Fantastic Four and people shit on Ben Grimm for feeling like, oh no, woe is me, I'm this rock thing. Like that would suck. Like you can't change back and you're not human anymore. That would suck.
Well, it depends though. Like if I'm not in the dating scene anymore, like what do I care?
No. Hopefully Maisie's into blue hair.
Yeah. Well, I think she loves animals.
Yeah, well, is she going to love you when you're the Thing? And you're made of rocks?
I think so.
And you roll over her in the middle of the night and you crush her to death?
See, you don't want to be in the dating scene, or you're going to end up with a Fantastic Four situation where, like, the only way... It's so stupid. He ends up hooking up with not hooking up. He dates, like, a blind person... Because, like, there was a metaphor, you see, Dave. They were trying to say love is blind. But then you literally made the blind person. It's so stupid. No one of those movies sucked.
Here's subtlety. Let me hit you with it.
Yeah, those movies were not very subtle, and then they were not very subtle about being bad as time went on.
Yeah, no, they were absolutely garbage.
And you know what? As entertained as I am by First Class, it's pretty trash, too. I watched it again recently, and I was like, man, this is actually just is not very good.
Yeah.
The only good one that came out of that was Days of Future Past.
First Class is okay.
It's not
okay.
terrible,
Yeah.
but I thought it was good, and when I watched it again, I was like, oh boy, this is more like mediocre, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, but like, there's a pedigree on the first two that's like, decent to good, and then they just went completely off the rails with the third one, and
Yeah,
I haven't
X3
even
is the
seen the fourth
worst.
one yet.
Yeah. And X3 is still the worst, by the way.
And now they're
I-
saying that they're gonna like cross over, and Evan Peters, who's the Quicksilver in the X-Men one, is gonna be in the Marvel one.
Well, that makes sense. The
Wait-
Marvel one's dead.
Which is fine, except that then you have to acknowledge like those movies
Right.
exist.
That means like Professor X is running around somewhere. Oh wait, no, he died.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. He's alive again.
Well, so then there's that, but so there's the problem of the movies are bad, but then there's also the problem of, for example, Quicksilver in the Marvel movie moves at a pace that you could see like, okay, that is realistic for superpowers.
Sure.
In the fucking X-Men movie, he's basically stopping time completely. That is not his power. He cannot move that fast. And if he could, then the problems he arrives at later in the movie should not be problems. And so it breaks the entire logic of the film because he moves way too fast.
I figure they'll do something with it, though. And for the record, I think that anybody who suddenly comes across mutant powers, superpowers, whatever, should probably not be in the dating scene because there's got to be catastrophic mistakes. They're not covered in the regular comics and stuff, but you mean to tell me that the first time Wolverine had sex after he became Wolverine, those claws didn't come out on accident?
Well, I mean, you just
You don't
got
know.
he just has to aim them properly, right?
I'm in the bedposts.
Yeah, but then he knows something's going to happen. That's what I mean. Like the first time, he's like, I got this metal inside of me now, and I'm all this pent-up rage I was experimented on, and now some
Yeah.
woman thinks she likes me because I'm super hot bod. No matter which version of it is, Wolverine's always hot. And, they get into it, and then all of a sudden, he's spasming, and his fucking claws come out and impale this woman.
I mean,
and
he impels people just from waking up from a bad dream. So, yeah, I mean, why not in the throes of passion?
Yep.
The Boys does stuff like that, except it's like worst case scenario every time. So,
I'm curious how many people someone like Rogue killed until she realized that touching people killed them.
well, they kind of go over that, and the answer is like a few.
A few. Usually it's not killed, it's like maimed badly, but they recovered because she's a good character. It's okay.
Yeah.
But, there's mishaps,
I mean, I'm trying to apply this more to real life because it'd be like, let's say, she does kill someone the second you touch him. Well, that sucks because mom's dead, dad's dead. Is this from childbirth or something?
Well-
Actually, I've always been curious about this.
And you always find out that way. There's never like a manual where you're like, oh, if I touch someone,
Yeah.
I'll kill them. So you can only find that out by one way.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's where they're headed with Shigaraki and My Hero Academia. Like, killing when he touches people, they disintegrate. So it's not like I'm going to slowly sap your powers and it could kill you. It's like, you're not here anymore. And so, yeah, that's a thing when you get powers.
So I have an on-the-fly segment suggestion of rate how much of a wimp I am. Let's see how much you can make fun of Dave. That's my segment.
Okay.
Why would you open the door to this?
I mean, it seems like I have it covered enough as it is, but I mean,
It's
by all means.
So this past week in Flagstaff, I've heard of 5 feet of snow, just snow pounding everywhere. However, the desert of Phoenix has been quite cold too. We had our high today was 48, which is very cold for us. I've had an electric blanket on my legs all day long while I was working from home, and I still do right now. How much of a wimp am I?
Well, so here's the problem, Dave. It's super wimp. That's really bad, right? But then it's like a double faux pas because you're talking about the weather again, and so it's like it's the vanilla argument, it's the weak argument. It's almost. I'm trying to look
And
for the trifecta.
I think there's an inherent issue with having to ask if you are a wimp, too. I think that just de facto reduces the point by like 2 or 3 worth. Whatever the scale is, it slides it further down.
He probably thought we were going to be nice, though, because like a lot of times when you invite, like, oh, you guys are going to think I'm so stupid, then you share the thing, and your friend's like, oh, I'm like, no, I mean,
that was
I
fine.
get it. I understand.
Not
Maybe
this time.
not so.
No, and that's fine. It's kind of like asking, like, "Hey, am I cool?" If you have to ask, then no, like you're not. I understand. I
Except
understand
in
that.
this case.
I understand that I am
yes.
Yeah.
If you have to ask if you're pathetic, then it's the opposite.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that just bears out.
It's the inverse of it.
So I mean, in talking about pathetic things, I want to be really honest with you guys. On whatever night the last Suns game was, and so we might be drifting into Suns cast territory, ladies and gentlemen.
Saturday,
Saturday,
yeah, because they head off till Wednesday tomorrow, which is yesterday for the viewers. It's fine, whatever.
I was like, the night before they had lost, and I was very upset about that one. Saturday night comes, we lose, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I am okay. I'm feeling like fine. We were supposed to lose this game. Following that, I lost sleep that night. I spent a lot of Sunday like reading articles, being like, why are we so bad? I'm like going through like a thing, like a spell. Like I'm struggling here. I need therapy. I need Suns therapy. It's affecting my mood. It's affecting my sleep. I can't get over it.
I want to know if seeing Jamal Murray get punched in the nuts helped that, was some sort of cathartic therapy.
I thought he didn't get punched in the nuts. I thought he punched in the nuts.
Out for getting him getting kicked out and shamed on social media for punching somebody in the nuts. Sorry.
No, not really, because he still got the last laugh. He punched someone in the nuts. Unless his punishment was also getting punched in the nuts by the guy he punched the nuts of. I'm not going to be happy.
Which would be an interesting deterrent for Draymond Green, but
and
alas.
You know what else I'm annoyed about? So there's certain things that happen in a game. You botch a call, and it's there's only so much you can do after the fact. When the refs go back and they're like, oh, you know what? We missed that. That's our bad. Well, there's 5 minutes left. Who knows all the different outcomes? I know you can't do this. I don't even know if I would want to set the precedent, but it occurs to me that when there's a last second shot at the buzzer, video shows it was clearly a travel. There is no arguing. There's no other outcome that you could have in that moment. Why can't you just be like, that's the,
no
that's, no shot. And actually the Suns win the game.
Yeah.
I know you can't, like, I know it, but it kind of like bothers me is like, sometimes I think, what's the fucking point of the refs if there's going to be an obvious thing that wins the game? It is that cut and dry. That's the win and loss right there. And you're like, well, oh, well.
That came up in baseball, too. I mean, I know we don't talk about a ton of baseball on this podcast, but the Andres Galarraga perfect game from like 2012 or so was before the video replay challenge had been set up in baseball. But nonetheless, it was the final out of the game. And this one didn't even affect a win or a loss, but it was still history, which is, important in baseball, right? And there's clear-cut video evidence that guy is out at first. It's not under dispute. There's not a single camera angle that makes it iffy. It's like he's out by a step and a half. Every angle you look at. So why can't they go back and just be like, yeah, the correct call was out. You got all 27 men out in a row. It's a perfect game. So I don't have an answer for you. It's just to bring that up in the context of like, I don't know. When it is, you can do whatever you want to with any time left on the clock. If there's 8 seconds left and we wave that off or something, you can say, well, that would have been a huge call, but Denver could have stolen the inbounds pass or something, right? Like something dumb, but sure, like that is a valid point. When it's the final play of the game and the clock has clearly hit 0, I don't know why there's not a different accommodation taken for that. I just know I didn't really care about it because, like you said, I had no expectations for that game. If that had been a playoff game, I would be livid.
Yeah. Well, and I got to think, I know, had we played better, if we didn't have the worst fourth quarter scoring in the league, if we didn't turn it over so much, 100 different things that we could have done better to not be in that situation. But at the end of the day, it was a absolutely wrong call. It was not a little bit. It was not like, maybe the other guy touched the ball when it was going out of bounds. It's hard to tell. It was 4 steps. Why? It bothers me.
It's not even one of those calls where it's like, oh, the ball was actually out on the offense, but the offensive guy got fouled, but the ref didn't call the foul, so he's just going to keep it here with the offense, kind of make up for the fact they didn't call a foul, which actually sucks when you review it. Because it's like, well, we can't review the foul, but it is out on the offense, so other way, that type of thing. It's not even one of those where it's like, yeah, the call was wrong, but the result got right, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and like I thought you have to review everything at the buzzer. Like they do that all the time in games. These fucking refs. They reviewed a goaltending after time expired. Why did they not review that last second shot? And if they did, how did they not arrive at like, oh, I mean, this is clearly a travel? Was there some rule where they can't call it? Like they're only reviewing it for the time and not if there was a foul or a travel?
Essentially, it's for the same problem where you have like you're challenging, or it's just the last 2 minutes and it's an out of bounds play that's being disputed, and you see that like, okay, well this team touched it last, but that guy shoved him out of bounds.
Yeah.
But you can't review for that part of the play. You can only review for who the ball went off of. So you basically have to sit there and go, well, shit, like the call is their ball, even though we saw you go into somebody's back and create that situation to begin with. And you know, the other problem was Ayton maybe got away with a foul on that play, but guess what? That's not in dispute either because the travel happened before it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're reviewing every facet of the play, then whether or not he could have fouled Murray is not a factor because that came after he released the shot when he was coming down to land and the travel had already happened.
I don't know. It's infuriating that not only did they not review that play that would have been a travel at the end of that game on Saturday, on Friday they decided to review the Devin Booker drive where he elbowed the defender in the face, and I saw many replays. Some say on his right elbow might have clipped him and his left elbow missed entirely, but it was so not clear cut, and they overturned the call on the court, which I was just blown away by that they actually overturned the call. If it would have been called that way on the court and they kept the call, I would have been like, all right, fine, I get it. But to overturn it to me was
where you have to have no shadow of a doubt that it was the thing.
That was worse to me than missing the travel call.
Like most of the time, the only time I see a call reversed to this point has been like when they review it and it turns out there was like no contact whatsoever. Then it's like, oh, okay, that is obviously beyond the shadow of the doubt like a missed call. Mm-hmm. This was like, even seeing it, you're like, okay, well, perhaps the front left elbow barely brushed against the person's head and then he flopped.
Yep.
Who was reaching in before that anyways.
Yeah.
That was the hardest one for me to swallow, was because, like you said, it has to be conclusive, right? It was nothing of the sort. Mm-hmm. So they spent all this time on that, came to that conclusion. There was the other play at the end of the first overtime in Saturday's game where Crowder hit the three. Was it that one or was it an earlier one in the fourth quarter? I don't remember. Down the stretch in one of the spots, Crowder hits a three, and they go to review it to see if it's a three. His feet are like 1.5 feet behind the line, and the video review takes 3.5 minutes for reasons that are not quite clear to me. We were kind of fast forwarding through it because we watch the games that way. For people who don't know, like we skip the commercials because we start late and then we can catch up on the broadcast. So we didn't have the time to sit there and wait for them to review it. But even just kind of waiting as time elapsed, skipping 10 seconds, nobody could make it clear how a call so simple was taking so long. So my only conclusion can be that referee crew sucked balls.
Yeah.
Which, I like to pretend that I'm a referee because I've refereed some athletic competitions. I mean, I've been a high school referee. It's nothing major. It's nothing noteworthy. But at least I've had a small little nibble on at least the procedure of a basketball game. Nothing like the NBA. It's much harder in the NBA level. But like, you got it. Like the control of the game is the same in some ways. I don't understand how the refs don't seem to have a control over some of these facets of the game, or are they questioning themselves and they have to go to replay all the time? I don't understand it, and that's coming from my very limited time as a referee.
Well, even like, so they keep botching jump balls. Like there's a specific rule for jump balls, and you keep catching like Jokic being like boop. Like it's like barely been released and he just hits it over. And Aiton's like, what are you doing? And no one, there's no stoppage of play and no one cares. Just like little things like that. There was one where they like didn't know a rule. And Mike Malone was like, are you fucking joking? Like that's not even necessarily disputing the call, but just being like, if that's your call, this is not what you're supposed to do now. And like telling the refs what the rules are. And as someone who was a coach at one point during college, who was telling the refs, no, you're wrong, that's not your rule, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, if the refs are supposed to be the arbiters of the rule,
and
if the coach knows the rule better, then that's an issue. And I like to give the referees the the benefit of the doubt when possible. Like, it's a hard game to referee when there's a bang bang call. A lot of times it's hard to make the right call, and most times they do. But stuff like that, when you don't know the rules, if you're at the NBA level, that's just not acceptable.
Yeah. And that's my biggest problem, is that the Suns lost these games for any number of reasons, including, as was mentioned before, their really bad play in the fourth quarter of both games, as has been the case all season. They just don't seem to know how to close out games. They've been in the most single-digit games in the NBA, and that's part of why their record sucks. And that's relative to expectations. They're still above 500, right? However, the referees and their bad officiating were one of those factors, and it's very frustrating because at the very least, you want your team to lose for reasons that you feel like they could control.
Yeah.
Now, again, they could have won both of these games with any number of the other issues that came up if they had scored on like one more possession in both of them, right? So you can't point the finger there. And as Dave said, it's an incredibly hard game to referee. You could call a foul almost every possession. It's extremely quick, and you have to be up close and personal on it. So I get all that. I do. And I'm not normally that hard on the officials. This crew was almost incompetent.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating. We saw a game where they only had 2 officials on the court because the third had a coronavirus scare and they had to come off the floor. That game was better officiated than this with 3.
Well, and it's like, I'm not even saying like, yeah, there's a handful of calls every game where I'm like, I wouldn't have called that. That seems like a bad call. I'm not even worried about that part because that is tough. A lot of times it could go either way. It's like the stuff where now you've slowed it down and you're still not making the right call, or you don't even know what the rule is. And it's that type of stuff that, like you said, incompetent is the best word for it. I know this is just a symptom, though, and I want to get to the core of everything of like, I want you guys to talk me off the ledge here because I'm having big time deja vu. I know we've all seen the similarities to last year. Hot start. Then we start putting together like a losing streak. But I am like afraid we are, it's not like a weird fluke. I'm afraid it's a trend and we're going to be like the same as we were last year. And that's why I want this therapy to talk me off the ledge. Or if you're both like, actually, I think you're right.
I will join you on the ledge and we will link arms and we will jump simultaneously.
Yeah.
Well, here's my question for you. You had them on 42 wins. You were the highest of us. Was that right?
41 or 42, yeah.
What does 8 and 7 project out to? Spoiler alert, it's just underneath that.
Well,
39.
yes. But and so that's okay. My
But the
concern,
feeling is
though,
the recent stuff. I get it.
yeah, and like especially after starting 5-2, if we're to keep our last, I think 7 games, we're 2-5 now after 5-2. That can't be. It feels like it's about.
No, 2-4. We've lost 7 games, so yeah, 5 losses and 3 wins. 3-5.
3-5, 3-5. So if we continue going 3-5 the rest of the way, that's where I get concerned. And again, like last season where we had a good start, a little bit was fool's gold. And Chris, you definitely knew it. I think Dave might have known it too. And I was afraid that it was the case, but like not admitting it yet until I had to when we lost like 14 in a row. But that's what I want to make sure we're like not headed. And by most accounts, you look at Chris Paul last year, the Thunder started 5-10, eerily similar actually to us in the ways like it was a bunch of close games that they lost. And then he put it together. But things like Devin Booker can't really seem to put it together, at least to the level that we're used to. I know I've been harder on him than he deserves. I admitted it to Chris when we were watching the last game. I was like, his stats actually are not like terrible. I keep saying he's terrible. They're not bad, but they're certainly not what we expect from him. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's in a funk.
I think I can talk you off the ledge in the sense of, let's just think of the alternate universe where they don't overturn Devin Booker's foul call and Jamal Murray misses that 3. All of a sudden, we're 10-5. How different do you feel in that universe?
Oh, incredibly. And I mean, winning back-to-back against Denver, I would feel incredibly different. But you're right, and I don't want to be argumentative, but like the thing is, like we could have done that last year. There was that game in Mexico City where it wasn't like on the maybe the same level, but it was a game we definitely should have won, and then we didn't. And it was like, well, I mean, what can you do? That hurts more because you've lost so many other ones.
Yes.
And so now I look at Washington and I look at Detroit, and those hurt a lot more.
To me, that's a worse sign. If we were still losing games to bad teams like that, instead of losing games to good teams like Denver, where we should have won both games, I'd be way more concerned, because I think like you said, the good signs are Chris Paul, like you said last year, had a rough start and then put it all together. Devin Booker's had this weird type of, hey, I'm playing with Chris Paul. This guy is way better than me. He's my elder, and seems like defer way too much. And I think in the Denver game a little bit, Booker wasn't doing that as much. And I think that was starting to get better until he got hurt, of course. And
it felt like that was a game where he was getting over the hump, and then he hurt his leg. Yeah, but he had an incredible sequence of a block, and I think that led to the injury. Eventually, he came back down, got a great rebound, and then landed weird. But
those were separate. But yeah.
But so overall, I think if you put yourself in the shoes of, we're the same exact team right now, but those two breaks happen differently, and we're 10-5. We'd feel way better about this. So while it's 2 less wins and two more losses in a season where our playoff positioning, if we can make the playoffs, is going to be very tight as is, it sucks. But I still have a lot of hope left, because I think the team's on the right course. I mean, going to double overtime with Denver, missing Booker was a good sign to me.
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
And they got pasted in the second overtime, but guess what the difference was there? Ayton fouled out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now you're down 2 of your big 3, and Chris Paul is trying to orchestrate an offense with like Abdul Nader on the floor in crunch time minutes, which was probably not the right call, even though he had played decently well. I think he got a little exposed when he played like almost 30 minutes. But at that point, where else are you turning? You have no Saric, no Booker, no Ayton. So who's going to be your secondary playmaker?
No Cam, apparently, because he
Cam
hurt his leg too.
Yeah. So now you've got, Mikal Bridges, who's a really good complimentary player, but nowhere near ready for a second dog status right now. And like a bunch of ragtag secondary bench players and Chris Paul against a fully fledged Nuggets team. And you're like, yeah, that's probably the outcome that should have happened.
Oh, yeah.
If anything, I take heart in the fact that these happened the way they did. I would be a lot more concerned long term if the officiating had cost us the, say, Detroit and Washington games, and we'd gotten like washed by Denver on 2 different occasions back to back.
Exactly.
Because the Detroit game we could have won anyways. There wasn't any officiating blunders. We talked about that one where it was like a million different paper cuts that killed us, and not one thing. That little weird matchup zone they played in the second half seemed to give us fits, which was such a strange choice when we were shooting the lights out from 3 to be like, hey, how about some more threes? But it worked for them, so you can't really talk shit. But to me, that's what gives me hope. Is like, we could talk ourselves in either direction, right? You could look at this and be like, yeah, we could be like 11-4 right now with just a handful of breaks, or you could look at a couple of the wins that were close and be like, well, God, we're only a couple of games away from being like under 500 now. The playoff picture. To me, I'm not really an optimist, but I don't think I've hit the panic button by any means yet.
Well, we're not Dallas, and that has to feel good. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but they're like bad. I think they're like, I don't know. I feel like Chris might be looking up the record, but I also know he's working, so I don't want to put pressure.
I'm doing it.
On him being the tech
Dallas
guy. But they just keep losing. I mean, they're like bad.
They're doing the same thing they did last year, which is lose a ton of close games.
Portland is doing okay, but without CJ McCollum, I think that's gonna bear out negatively for them over the course of however long he's out for.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, my point in saying this is our separation actually is decent, but now it's not good enough to be 7th or 8th, because then you're in the play-in tournament, and I really want to avoid being in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, although this season's been so wonky in so many ways because of, we've played 15 games, but the Lakers have played 18, and the Nuggets played 7. Like, the amount of the games disparity has made a difference too in the standings. It's tough to look at the standings right now and know what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
because the games disparity.
Well, the Grizzlies are tied with us technically, but they've played 2 fewer than us, and we're on the low side of games played because of our coronavirus issues. Those were 3 home games we lost. Now, you're not going to win home games automatically, especially this season with no crowds, but they still favor the home team across the league right now. So those will come back later on. Those should benefit us because, again, home games against not that good of teams overall. So that's a thing that should help down the road. There's plenty of reasons to be optimistic as well. And look, the top 4 in the West is exactly what we said it would be.
Yep.
LA teams, Jazz, and the Nuggets after just an abysmal start. What were they, 2-5?
Something like that, yeah.
They've turned it around. Now they're 10-7. They were like 1-5 or 2-5, one or the other. So the top 4 teams are what we thought. Now, like you said, is anybody else around us without their concerns? No. The Grizzlies had some injuries. Who knows if Jaren Jackson can ever be healthy? The Trailblazers have had injuries. To a certain point, they feel snake bit. But then again, this kind of happens with players over time where you're like, if Yusuf Nurkic keeps getting hurt, Is that bad luck? Or is it just Nurkic can't stay fucking healthy? If Zach Collins keeps missing entire chunks of seasons, is that bad luck? It depends on the injury, right? Because it flips around too. Last year, the injury thing came up with Steph Curry again. You remember his ankle troubles earlier in his career. It's like, well, now he's missing time again. It's like, yeah, Aaron Baines fell on him.
Yeah.
Is that his fault? Does that mean he was prone to injury because a 7-foot, 280-pound dude fell on him? Like, let's take a look at it for what it is. So, yeah, it's not thrilling. You would have loved to have been in a better spot than right now, given what we saw in those games. But I'm also like, well, I'm not happy about it. I'm like, I'm not that worried.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Okay.
That's the attempt to talk you off the ledge.
That helps. I mean, it helps. I get so like, I want to win. Like, and the thing is, we lost game 2 to Sacramento, and I was fine. I wasn't like, this is the end of the world. But I think when the losses start compounding, that's when I start being like, oh God, like just like win, like go on when's the time we've been on like a win streak, like a good win streak? It feels like a long time.
Yeah, the bubble.
We won 4 in a row earlier this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's not bad.
For the first time in a non-bubble scenario for like 8-9 years or something.
Yeah, I want like more bubble though. I want like 7-game, 8-game win streaks that a lot of the good teams do.
I mean,
Lakers have done it. The Clippers have done it.
The Jazz have done it.
Yeah.
Yep, Jazz are on it right now.
Mm-hmm. And the Nuggets are on a hot streak, but not quite that to that extent. But
actually, I still don't think the Jazz are all that good. But I think what people thought was going to be the case earlier this season has been the case. Is they're one of the few teams that have a ton of continuity right now. So it's been easy for them. Like, their ceiling doesn't have to be super high because they've just been so even. Like, they're beating the teams that are kind of still trying to figure things out.
I gotta say, they earned my respect a little bit, or at least one of them did. Donovan Mitchell responding to Shaq with Shaq's just shitty take of like, "You can't finish, man. You can't get it done." All right.
And I don't like fault Shaq. I understand what Shaq was trying to do, and the answer he was trying to go for was like, a little bit of like, no, like, I can be that player, and like I think this is what it's going to take to get there, and here's what I've been working on. But yeah, the way it came off, Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to engage. It's like, okay, thanks for that, I guess.
I guess I can understand what he was trying to accomplish, but what a dumb way of going about it. The more I see Shaq on that show, the more I can't stand him.
The question you have to ask yourself is like, should we be surprised anymore?
No.
Because it's always his comeback with Chuck too. The whole, well, you didn't win a ring, blah blah blah. Like, I have all these titles, and I understand it. I get it. It's a winning-based culture, but like when you look at last year's playoffs, is Donovan Mitchell really the guy you want to take shots at? The guy who scored 57, 30, 20, 51, 30, 44, and 22 in that series? That's the guy you want to be like, yeah, man, you just suck. You can't get it done. Like, I don't know what else he could have done. I mean, him and Murray were excellent in that series that went 7. Mm-hmm. And it came a Mike Conley near fluke 3-point at the buzzer from advancing out of that series.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, okay, but the dude's like 23. And I can't believe Shaq's put me in a position where I have to defend fucking Donovan Mitchell.
I know.
Because anybody who's in the Devin Booker comparison class, we're not huge fans of. The same with Jamal Murray. Like, that's just what happens. The same with Jason Tatum, although I think we have to concede that Tatum's better than Booker. But, like, we're usually against those players. So for Shaq to make me want to actually root for Donovan Mitchell makes me sad inside.
Mm-hmm. It's a true story. So, fuck you, Shaq.
Yeah, and like you said, winning-based culture, it's like it almost doesn't even matter what your numbers are as long as you're part of a team that wins, that gets to the Western Conference Finals or the finals or wins the championship. You can almost be less good, but it just matters if you're on the team that goes far, and that's weird to me.
Well, you know how much of a better player Robert Horry was than Charles Barkley.
Right, yeah. Robert Horry is going to be like, I'm sure in Shaq's mind, Robert Horry's like the superior player in some weird way. And obviously that's not the case, but when you prioritize winning above all else, it can be.
If I'm drafting my all-time team, I'm absolutely taking Steve Kerr over Steve Nash every day of the week.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole winning culture, I do have to say, it's insane to me. Like, how do you not concede at this point that Tom Brady is the best? If you're going by like the greatest of all time, if you're going by metrics of like what they've done, and then it's the same problem with basketball. You're like, well, Michael Jordan's the best, but only if you value certain things like cultural impact and things like that. But like freaking, he won again. I'm shocked. I really am shocked that this is happening.
I love the stat I heard that Tom Brady has been to 46% of the Super Bowls in the years in which he's been a starting quarterback. Steph Curry is a 43% career three-point shooter. It is more likely that Tom Brady will make the Super Bowl than Steph Curry will make a three-point shot.
That's a good one. He has twice as many playoff wins as any other quarterback in history.
Yes.
And again, I'm not a big Tom Brady fan either. It seems like a smug douche. But he's awesome. He's probably the best quarterback of all time. He's definitely the best playoff quarterback of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you had a doubt, like, of how great he was, and I don't really care for him that much either off the field, but if you had any doubt about how great he was, he did it with New England, and now he's doing it with a different team.
At 43.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, 43. Yeah, he always said, when I suck, I'll retire. And, well, he's in the Super Bowl again, so I guess he doesn't suck.
And it looked rough the first couple weeks, but, then again, it was him doing an adjustment to an entirely new franchise after being with one for his entire career before that, so I think a little slack was probably afforded there. And, I don't want to bring up other people that I don't really like talking about, but what the hell, let's lump them all together. Bill Simmons' point was he probably could have had more wins. They've been a first-round bye so many times in his career in New England that now he wanted to count those wins, and we're like, all right, Bill, let's calm the hell down. But the point still stands that, maybe they lose one of those, but overall, you have to think he could have 4 or 5 more wins than he does, which is like 33 or 34 total. It just blows everybody else out of the water. And Aaron Rodgers, who also has a pretty good playoff pedigree when you think about it, is almost 500 now and has won 1 Super Bowl and has lost 4 NFC title games.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the amount of Super Bowls that you think of the great quarterbacks like Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, they've been to combined a fifth of the Super Bowls that Tom Brady has been to combined.
And to a certain extent, that's sort of a self-defeating stat because if Brady's in all the Super Bowls, there's only so many other slots. Now, granted, they've been in the adjacent conference for most of that. But still, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, you can't go too crazy about it. But nonetheless, it's major impressive. They also play more playoff games than they did way back in the day. All this stuff matters, sure. Yeah. But he's got double the playoff wins of any other quarterback in history. That probably means something.
It does.
Well, and it's crazy to me, the Chiefs are in, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, it's also, it's cool that everybody's like, Patrick Mahomes, it's not going to be a question of if, it's how many. And then to see like, well, back in the Super Bowl again. It's just crazy. There's like, especially for a sport where you get a lot of variance, a lot more than like the NBA or some of the other ones, to have that level of success is crazy. It's really cool.
There's a reason he signed a $500 million contract.
Yeah.
So
it's
good for
so weird to me to think of the NFL as like being this league of parity, and it is. To your point, like overall it is, and yet at the top it really has not been over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
No, there was some stat throughout the 2000s that there was not a single Super Bowl that didn't involve a Manning or a Brady or a Roethlisberger in one way or the other. And that was it. Like for 20 years, it was something like that. And that streak, if you throw in Mahomes now, is basically like the entire 2000s. Is one of those 4 names have been in there one way or the other.
But I mean, to talk about Tom Brady, it does. It's the little things like that make me feel better, even like about Chris Paul. Because if you were to look at Tom Brady and if you were to jump to conclusions this season in the first 2 games, oh, yep, he's washed, he's old, it's over, and you sell your stock. Well, it just takes some time sometimes. And, I want to believe that we can apply that to our team. And like the problem is the last decade of evidence has not been helpful, but it was a different team. So I'm going to try to stay optimistic.
You have not jumped off the ledge. We'll see what happens next week.
I backed off the ledge, in fact, for now. But I could find myself right back, enticed, seduced by the ledge in the coming week.
As usual, just given the time frame of this, they'll have played last night when this airs. So who knows? Maybe they won convincingly. Booker played and was healthy. Maybe they lost by 25, and Shaun's already on the ledge as we speak.
If we lose by 25 to Oklahoma City, I'm going to be right back on the ledge.
You're going to surpass the ledge. You're going off the edge.
Even without Devin Booker, I will still feel that way.
Look,
because
I know,
good teams should beat bad teams even without one of their best player.
I know it's going to do it for you, and it's losing back to the Mavericks. If we do that next week,
when Luka goes for like 40, 15, and 15 both games,
Exactly.
and
And
the entire
Ayton-
media is sucking his dick collectively.
Ayton fouls
Yep.
out in both games.
Ayton is
Early.
suspended for some reason.
yeah, that'll be not only jumping off the ledge. It'll be like, can I get a paraglider to go farther off the ledge so I can actually fall farther?
But
Yeah.
can the paraglider be sabotaged in some way so that I actually die?
I'm gonna strap a bomb on the paraglider. Yeah.
Skip the paraglider. I'm just going off the cliff.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that's the end of the episode. Please pray for us, given last night's results that we don't know about yet. And tonight, is it Thursday they play again? Wednesday, Thursday?
Yep.
Wednesday.
Play the Warriors on Thursday.
And then back-to-back against the Mavs after that?
Saturday and Monday against
Yeah,
the Mavericks.
so-
Like we should win the next 4 games.
I mean, I think a split with the Mavericks is reasonable. They're not
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
And they have the same
Right.
fourth quarter problems we
Well,
do, and
I
they're
was gonna
healthy
say
now.
we should win the next 4. If we do 3 out of 4, like that's totally fine. That's still a great result.
And the question is Booker, too. We don't know. There hasn't been any reports today, as far as I know, either. It's just a game-time decision. So he could play in all of them. He could miss all of them. We don't know.
Mhm.
That makes a huge difference, because if Booker's not playing in any of those 4 games, we're not winning all 4 games. I would, the devil would be like, hey, you can win $10 million if the Suns win all 4. I'd be like, hell no. Even with Booker, I'd be like, if
Yeah,
take my
exactly.
soul if they don't do it, then no thank you, but maybe come back later. Check with me, devil. Anyways, all I'm saying is pray for us, because we don't know what happened last night, and Shaun might be in a bad shape.
That's true. Oh my God, that's true.
Alrighty, that's the end of this episode. In between the shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or at youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos 7 days a week, including maybe basketball, which I have to talk to Dave about after the show. So we'll see. Anyways, see you next time.